South Carolina truly is the state of new beginnings, fresh starts. I remember back when our governor was running for her governorship the first time, she was in 4th place. Everyone counted her out, but she kept striving. She kept working. She believed that South Carolinians, from Greenville to Spartanburg to Anderson to Charleston, would give her an opportunity if they could just hear her message. And day after day after day she worked. She understands the journey of the American dream in a very unique way. She represents us so well. Would y'all agree our governor is fantastic? And when I started hearing the rumblings that there might be an endorsement coming somebody's way, I was thankful to hear that she disqualified at least one candidate. I was excited about that. Yes. Gotta get him in there. And then yesterday, around 6 p.m., I heard the sound of the cavalry coming. It's a great day in South Carolina. Help me welcome our governor, Nikki Haley.
It's a great day in South Carolina. We are so excited to be here because this is an important time in South Carolina, and this is an important time in our country. But you know, as you come and you think about endorsements, a lot goes into it. But I'm a different person today than I used to be. After 2015, South Carolina went through 3 different tragedies, and we were shaken, and we felt vulnerable. And we felt like something had happened that we didn't know that we could recover from. But what happened was the people of South Carolina stood up and showed the country and the world who we are. We showed that we were a people of faith. We showed that we were a people with love. We showed that we were people with kindness and grace. And we didn't talk about it, we showed it. And the entire country stood to watch. And with that, it made me a different person. One that I think even more seriously about everything than I did before. One that I think about things that I never thought I'd have to think about. So when it was time to endorse, I had felt a heavy responsibility. But I went back to what you do first. I am first and foremost a mom. And I wanted a president that I knew was going to allow the opportunities for my children to have a better life, just like what my parents wanted for us. I have always said I am the proud daughter of Indian parents that reminded us every day how blessed we were to live in this country. I wanted to make sure that I could give them the same opportunities that my parents gave to us. I am the proud military wife of a combat veteran. And I'm not alone in South Carolina. We have had a lot of military families. I know how they worry. I know their sacrifice. I know what they think about. We needed a president that was going to not be strong and strengthen our military, but was going to have the backs of the military families when we're home and when we're active. We needed a president that was going to push back on the Democrats and push back on all the mandates like Obamacare and EPA and no more National Labor Relations Board. We wanted somebody who was going to fight back against all of those things. We wanted somebody that understood we can't just have made in America jobs in South Carolina. We wanted them all across this country. So we want to see more jobs, not changing states, but actually coming back to America like we have with Michelin and Bridgestone and all these tires, 5 international tire companies, 3 automotive companies. We want that happening all over the country. But we wanted somebody that was going to bring a conscience back to the Republicans. a conscience back to Republicans in D.C. so that they remember who they were when they got there, which is balanced budgets, reducing our debt, building up our reserves, and know that the president that I wanted would believe in term limits in D.C. so that everybody in D.C. would know that their time was going to be up one day. So those were all the things I really cared about. And then I remembered that I was a legislator that went to you and said, if you will take a chance on me, I will spend every day trying to make you proud. And I met a state senator that understood what things are like in D.C. He knows how they think. He knows how they feel. He knows what they're going to do before they do it. I wanted someone with passion. I wanted someone with fight. I wanted someone with conviction to do what is right. And I wanted somebody with humility that understood you work for all of the people in the country. It is a great day in South Carolina. But it will be a great day in America when we have President Marco Rubio. Help me remember the next President of the United States, Marco Rubio!
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. I apologize. We're a few minutes. We started a little late. Trey Gowdy was just finishing up hot yoga in there, so we had to hurry him up to get him out here. And see, I can give it too, Trey. You're not the only one that gets to tell jokes. I'm so honored to be with you here today. We have a great team. First of all, I want to thank my colleague Mike Lee of Utah for being here in town and being a part of this event this morning. Mike is part of this new generation of conservatism that takes our principles, the principles of limited government and free enterprise, but applies them to the unique challenges of the 21st century. And I'm so grateful that he's here in South Carolina today to talk about not just our relationship and the work we've done together, but the future of the conservative movement. And I want to thank your mayor, Knox White, for being here. We've seen him now every day. We've been in Greenville a lot, and we love being with him. He's doing a great job. I told him the other night as I got home, back in the hotel room. I haven't been home in a while, Governor, but I think I told you this. I click on, and my wife had been on the internet, and I was looking at what she's searching. She's looking for home prices in Greenville, South Carolina. I think she just wanted to see some beautiful places here, and we've really enjoyed our time here. So anyway, it's been great to be a part of it. Obviously, I'm so grateful for the support of Trey Gowdy. He is a phenomenal leader, someone who really goes every day to Washington and makes a difference. Tim Scott is an incredible person. That's the first thing I would say. And the second thing is he represents everything the Republican Party should be about in the 21st century. Upward mobility. And I could spend the next 20 minutes bragging on your governor. The whole country admires her tremendously, and we are so happy and grateful she's a part of our team. And you know, it's the work she's done here in South Carolina. It's her personal story that reminds us of what's at stake in 2016. You see, every election is important. Every election matters. But I want to make an argument to you this morning. 2016 is the most important election in a generation. Because 2016 is not just a choice between political parties. 2016 is a choice about our identity. It is a referendum on what kind of country America will be in the 21st century. We know what kind of country America has been for the last 200 years. It's been an exceptional country. We can't say that enough. In fact, we need to begin to teach that to our kids again. That America is not just another country. It is the greatest nation in the history of all of mankind. America's greatness is derived from what you can do here that you can't do anywhere else. In the entire history of mankind, almost everyone that's ever been alive lived in a society that told you what you were allowed to be. Now, I don't know what that feels like because I've only lived in America my whole life. But like your governor, I was raised by parents who had lived outside of America. And when you have lived outside of America, you know how special America is. When you grow up in a society that says to you, it doesn't matter how hard you work or how much you try or how good you are, there are only certain things you're going to be allowed to do because of who your parents are. We don't know what that feels like. But that's been the human condition for almost all of history. Why we are different is because this is a country that believes that everyone has the God-given right to go as far as your talent, your work, and your dreams will take you. This is what makes us different and special. And this is what we're on the verge of losing. And we're on the verge of losing it because the people who run our government now, I want to say in both parties, but especially in the White House, I have undertaken an effort to change this country. President Obama is trying to make us more like the rest of the world. In the rest of the world, the government dominates the economy, and that's what he's trying to do. In the rest of the world, government is the most important institution in society, and that's what he's trying to do. We have a president that views America as an arrogant global power that needed to be cut down to size. That's why you cut deals with our enemies like Iran while you betray our allies like Israel. And that's why he's gutting our military. He is gutting our military. And so now in 2016, you have two people running on the Democratic side that don't just want to continue these policies, they want to expand them. Bernie Sanders is a socialist. Now here's the thing about American politics. Usually if you tell someone that they're a socialist in American politics, they deny it, right, Governor? They deny it. They say, I'm not a socialist, you're smearing me. Bernie Sanders says it in his commercials. But at least he's honest about it. He's a democratic socialist. I'm not saying he's a communist. He's a democratic socialist. In essence, he wants us to be a socialist country. I don't get that. If you want to be a socialist country, there is literally like dozens of places in the world that are socialist. Why don't you move to one of those countries? A few weeks ago, I started saying, you know, Bernie Sanders would be a good president of Norway. And the Norwegians got really upset. So then I said, okay, of Sweden. The Swedes got really upset. So I don't know. Is there anyone here from Luxembourg? We don't want to be a socialist country. The problem with Hillary Clinton is just as bad. First of all, she's chasing him in that direction. The Democratic Party today has been taken over by radical elements on the left. When the leading candidate is a avowed democratic socialist, you know the Democratic Party has gone off the deep end. And I mean the left deep end. Okay? But Hillary Clinton has serious problems. First of all, she's under FBI investigation because she put classified information on her server. Just yesterday on Fox News, there was a report that some of this information revealed the names of foreign nationals, of Afghans that were working with our intelligence agencies. You know what that means? You know, it poses a threat to their lives. It poses a threat to our operations. It's a very serious thing. She did it because she thinks she's above the law. They've always thought they're above the law. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't go that far, sir, but I would say that she is someone who thinks she's above the law. Well, let's talk about Benghazi. Because I think that disqualifies her to be commander-in-chief. So she knew that those Americans in Benghazi lost their lives because of a coordinated terrorist attack. And you know what she told their families? This was because of a video. Somebody made a movie, people got mad, and that's why they died. That's a lie. She knew that was a lie. Anyone who lies to the families of people who have lost their lives in the service of our country can never be the commander-in-chief of the United States of America. So, we have to win. I'm here today to ask you for your vote because I am as conservative as anyone running in this race, but I am a conservative that can win. That's a big deal. For years they've been telling us conservatives can't win. You got to moderate your positions. That's how you win. Well, Mike Lee and Nikki Haley and I were part of a movement in 2010 that said conservatives can win. People forget about the context of 2010. 2010 was after Obama had been elected and everyone was saying, you see, the Republican Party needs to become more like the Democrats if we want to win. That's why they didn't support Mike Lee. That's why Nikki Haley wasn't the favorite of the establishment here. And I was not the favorite of the establishment in Florida or in Washington. I met them both when they were candidates. I think you were in 5th place out of 5th. I was running against the sitting governor of Florida, Charlie Crist, who is no longer a Republican. He became an independent. Then he became a Democrat. Now he's a vegetarian. So he's like... I met Mike Lee when he was a candidate, taking on a sitting U.S. senator. Not a bad person, but someone who basically had become stagnant, as our party had become. Well, now it's time for us to rediscover that again. And I'm not a conservative just like the last 2 years. I have a 15-year record of turning conservative ideas into action. I was in the legislature. It's a part-time job in Florida, but I was in the legislature for 8.5 years. For example, we have some of the best eminent domain laws in the country. In Florida. Let me give you an example. This is just theoretical, okay? I'm not saying this would ever happen. But let's say a private developer tried to take your property to build a hotel. Just theoretically. Just theoretically. You can't do that in Florida. Because I passed a law that says you can't do that. We cut property taxes when I was speaker. We brought vocational training to our schools. Why don't we train more welders and plumbers? How many philosophers do we really need in America? Now, I probably shouldn't be saying that because there was like 300 philosophers in New Hampshire that voted against me, and it cost me. It cost me. But I have nothing against philosophers. I just think we need welders. If you want to be a philosopher, as long as you know how to weld, it's fine with me. You can study anything you want, but we have vocational training in Florida because of our efforts. We balanced our budget not once but twice in the middle of an economic downturn without raising a penny in taxes. So I'm proud of my conservative record even before I got to Washington. And in D.C., I've had achievements too. We imposed sanctions on Hezbollah. We imposed sanctions on human rights violators in Venezuela. We passed the Girls Count Act, which deals with human trafficking and modern-day slavery, a scourge on the world today. And I led the effort, and we got rid of the Obamacare bailout fund. They were going to use your taxpayer money to bail out private insurance companies. So I'm as conservative as anyone in this race, but we can win because we can unite this party. We have to come together at some point here. We cannot continue to fight with each other into October because we lose if we do that. And we don't just have to unite the party, we have to grow it. We have to grow it. That's why I'm so proud of the support of people like Tim Scott and Nikki Haley, because they are people that aren't just conservatives, they're growing the conservative movement. They're taking our message to people that don't usually vote for us. That's why I'm so happy Mike Lee is here with us today. He is one of the leading conservative reformers in the country who's taking our conservative ideas and saying, we have answers about how to cure poverty. And it doesn't involve big government, it involves good paying jobs. We have answers for people that are struggling. We have answers for young students that are struggling under the debt, student loan debt, that's increased by 500% in the last decade. We need to take our message of conservatism and not water it down, but take it to people that are struggling. Take our message to them. In essence, take our message to people who are living today the way I grew up, the way your governor grew up, the way Tim Scott grew up. Because the left has failed them. One of the biggest lies in American politics is that big government is good for people who are trying to make it. Well, it's a lie. If you've ever tried to start a business out of the spare bedroom of your home, not only are you in violation of the zoning code, right, Mayor? But you have a good mayor, so he'll be all right. But it's hard to do that because of regulations and taxes. A big company can deal with all this stuff. The best example of that is banking. The big banks today are bigger than they have ever been after Dodd-Frank because they can afford to deal with all these regulations. Who's getting killed by it? The community bank, the local bank, the regional bank. In essence, the banks that lend money to the business that you're trying to start out of the spare bedroom of your home. Big government traps people in poverty. We don't cure poverty in America anymore. In fact, we haven't cured poverty in America in 50 years. We trap people in poverty. We deal with the pain of poverty. What are our anti-poverty programs? They're the equivalent of breaking your leg and being given a lifetime supply of painkillers. In essence, they'll alleviate the pain of poverty, but they do not cure it. And the federal government and its programs will never cure poverty. And that's why I've worked with conservative reformers like Mike Lee and Tim Scott to take our anti-poverty program and turn it over to governors and states so that they can design innovative programs that cure poverty the only way you can, through a good paying job. That's what I want to do. I want to empower local communities to design these innovative programs, and the only requirement will be this. If you are receiving public assistance, unless you are permanently disabled, if you are receiving public assistance, you must either be working or going to school so you can acquire the skills or the experience you need to get back to work. We'll unite this party, and we will grow this movement, and we will win this election, and then we have a lot of work to do. Our Constitution is in a lot of trouble. We have this thinking today that's emerging in this country that the Constitution means whatever you want it to mean. I've heard the word the Constitution needs to be modernized, quote unquote. I don't know what that means, but that's not the Constitution. The Constitution is supposed to be applied according to its original meaning. What did those words mean to the people who wrote it? That's how the Constitution is supposed to be applied. If you want to change the Constitution, there's a way to do that. It's called Article 5. In fact, I support an Article 5 Convention of States because I think it's the only way we're ever going to get term limits in America. I'm not in favor of opening up the whole Constitution. The Second Amendment, we are going to defend it and protect it because you have a right to defend and protect your family. But if you think members of Congress will ever pass term limits, they'll all say they're for it. No one will ever vote for it. They won't pass it. They won't pass it. And we need it. We have term limits in Florida. The sky didn't fall. The world didn't end. And so we need it in Washington. And not just on Congress, but on judges too. Why should a federal judge be there for the rest of their lives unless they commit a crime? That's absurd. We need to go back to the limited powers that the federal government gives, that the Constitution gives the federal government. Why do we have a federal Department of Education? We don't need a federal. Why do we need a national school board? We don't need a national school board. When I am president, one of my top domestic priorities will be to bring the federal government back to its proper role and empower states and cities to provide the answers, because that's the government that's closest to the people. If you don't like something, you know who the mayor is. You know who the governor is. You know who your legislators are. Try going to Washington and getting someone on the phone. And I don't mean just elected officials. Bureaucrats have more power than ever before. You will never get anyone on the phone. So we are going to bring the Constitution. We're going to reinvigorate it in essence. When I take the oath of office, unlike Barack Obama, I will actually mean it. I intend to protect and defend and uphold the Constitution. You elect me president, you're going to have a president that knows that presidents do not create jobs, the private sector does. And our job is to pursue policies that allow the private sector to succeed. And if anyone wants to know what those policies look like, come to South Carolina. It means lower taxes. It means less regulation. It means balancing your budget. And at the federal level, it means getting rid of Obamacare once and for all. The one thing the federal government does have to do is it has to provide for national security. Barack Obama is a terrible commander-in-chief. He is gutting our military. It's not an exaggeration. The Army is about to be at its smallest size since the end of World War II. Our Navy is about to be the smallest size it's been in 100 years. The Air Force is not just going to be smaller than it's ever been. Our airplanes are older than they've ever been. The average age of an Air Force plane is 27 years old. That means the pilots are younger than the planes. You don't have to be a military expert to know that's a bad, bad sign. It's unfair to the men and women in uniform because we're still sending them into harm's way. We're still asking our servicemen and women to go into dangerous situations, but now we're asking them to go there with less people alongside them, with rules of engagement that don't allow them to win, with older airplanes, and oftentimes they're paying out of pocket to get better equipment than what they're being assigned. This is outrageous. Because the world is a more dangerous place today than ever before. A lunatic in North Korea has nuclear weapons. The guy's a lunatic. You think he's the son of a dictator. He's never been disappointed in his life. No one's ever told him no. His dad never put him in timeout. He's a lunatic. The guy's nuts. But he has nuclear weapons and long-range rockets. The Chinese government, they steal our inventions. They hack into our computers. They're taking over the South China Sea, the most important shipping lane in the world. Vladimir Putin, the guy poisons people. Literally poisons people. He's sowing instability in Europe and in the Middle East. I told you about Iran. They're going to get $100 billion of sanctions relief. They're not going to use that to build a bunch of bridges and orphanages. And they're going to rebuild their military or continue to build it. And one day they're going to buy or build a nuclear weapon. That's why when I'm president, on my first day in office, I will cancel Barack Obama's deal with Iran. And then radical Islamic jihadists are spreading and growing their influence and their ability to reach all over the world. I went to the State of the Union. And I went mostly just to make sure it was the last one by this president. But no, I went and I heard the president speak. And he basically said, ISIS, you guys are exaggerating. They're a bunch of guys on the back of a pickup truck with some guns. That's not who they are. ISIS is the group that burns people alive in cages. ISIS is the group that takes 10-year-old little girls and auctions them off as brides. ISIS is the group that now has a presence and affiliates in over a dozen countries. ISIS is the group that inspired the attacks in Paris, directed the attacks in Paris, and inspired the attacks in San Bernardino. They are the most capable, well-funded jihadist group in history. And they're an apocalyptic group. They're not going to go away on their own. They believe that their calling in life is to trigger an Armageddon showdown with the West, so that their hidden imam, the Mahdi, the 12th imam, their messianic figure emerges. I'm not telling you guys that that's what's going to happen. I'm telling you that's what they believe. People that believe that kind of stuff don't turn into stockbrokers. They have to be defeated. They have to be defeated militarily. How are we going to do that if we continue to weaken our military? And so I want you to understand something very clearly. When I am president of the United States, these defense cuts will end. We are going to rebuild the U.S. military when I am the president of the United States. Military spending is not the cause of our debt. It is not what's driving our debt. Does it mean we can't improve the way we spend on the military? Of course we can. Of course we can. We don't do the best job in spending on the military. But defense cuts are not going to balance our budget. The cause of our debt is that in less than 5 years, 83% of the entire federal budget will be consumed by Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and the interest on the debt. And I care about Medicare and Social Security because you might not know this. This is not very well known. But there are a lot of people on Social Security and Medicare in Florida. One of them is my mother. I am against any changes to Social Security and Medicare that are bad for my mother. It's a good sign. And the good news is we don't have to change or disrupt anything for her or anyone like her. But here's the truth. There is no way that Social Security and Medicare is going to work the same for me or for Governor Haley or for Tim Scott. How old are you, Trey? Or Trey Gowdy, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Or Mike Lee, or my kids, or your kids. It's going to have to work a little different. It'll still be the best thing in the world. It'll just work a little differently. For example, right now I'm supposed to retire at 67. I may have to retire at 68. If I were still in the Senate, I'd be one of the youngest people there. True story, he said. Almost. Almost. If I were running as a Democrat for president, I would be the youngest person there. Now we're going to get fact-checked by the Washington Post. 4 Pinocchios. You know, whatever. It's a joke. You can't fact-check a joke. If I've made a lot of money, like that couple in Florida that just won the Powerball, I got to send them a letter. Maybe they'll give to our campaign. If I've made a lot of money, my Social Security benefits might not grow as fast as someone who made less. Medicare could be the option of taking my Medicare money and using it to buy a private plan that I like better. Medicare Advantage provides that now. My mom's on Medicare Advantage. It works well for her. These are not unreasonable changes, and they're not too much to ask of people that are 25 years away from retirement in exchange for not having to disrupt it for people that are on it now and have earned it. It's not a favor that we're doing to them. Medicare is not a favor. Social Security is not a favor. They took that money out of your paycheck for 40 or 50 years with the promise that you were going to get some of that, a lot of that back when you retired. We are going to keep that promise, but we are going to save those programs, and in the process, we're going to bring our debt under control so we can rebuild our military. And we're going to have a real war on terror. Not the thing that you have now, a real one. Which means the best intelligence agencies in the world are going to find the terrorists. The best military in the world is going to destroy them. And if we capture any of these terrorists alive, they're not coming to South Carolina. They're going to Guantanamo. By the way, I have a message for the Cuban government. We're keeping Guantanamo. You're not getting it back. Maybe I should say that in Spanish. I don't think they watch C-SPAN. So here's the other thing we need to do on national security. We have to take care of our veterans again. Because we're not doing that now. What I'm about to do is my favorite part here in South Carolina, Governor. You saw it yesterday. I ask everybody, and it's really special here because of the number of people. If you are a veteran, will you raise your hand so we can thank you for your service? It's amazing because in South Carolina, every time I do that, like half the crowd raises their hands. So I'm thinking about saying, if you're not a veteran, will you raise your hand so we can thank the people that are? But what we're doing to our veterans today is immoral. I shared this with the governor yesterday. I think she saw it too. Top of the fold, USA Today, 2 days ago. Here's the headline. I'm paraphrasing. Calls to VA suicide hotline went to voicemail. Can you imagine? Do you think anyone's going to be fired over that? No. Do you think anyone's going to be held accountable for that? No. Now, you might get a bonus. They might get promoted. This is outrageous. We need to hold people accountable. When I'm president, if you are not doing a good job, you will be fired from the VA. And I want to be fair, okay? I want to be fair. There are really good people at the VA. There are really good VA facilities in America. I thank them for what they do. A lot of the people that work at the VA are veterans. It's not fair to them that this is happening. And if you're happy at the VA when I'm president, you keep going to the VA. But when I'm president, our veterans will be able to take their VA benefits to any hospital or any doctor they want to go to. So let me conclude. Let me conclude my statement here by leaving you with a sense of optimism too. Because the challenges we face are real. They're very significant. But I also want you to believe this. If we do what needs to be done, I think America's greatest days are within our reach. I believe the 21st century has a chance to be the freest, the most prosperous, the strongest era in our entire history. But that's going to require us to take action. That's going to require us to do something, and to do something now. It's going to require us to do what every generation before us did. You see, ours is an amazing story here in this country. Ours is a story of a nation where for over 2 centuries, each generation has left the next better off. Now, I've been saying this for the last couple days. I could say it anywhere in the country. I could say it before any crowd in America. I have not met the vast majority of you in person. And yet I know your story. Because you're Americans. You are the children of people who made incredible sacrifices. Who gave up sometimes their own dreams, so your dreams could be possible. Is there any other country in the world where you can speak to a crowd of hundreds and say that and be certain that that's their story? I know it's your story, because that's our story. That's the American story. It's the story of how your parents, your father who worked 2 jobs, of how of your mother who made incredible sacrifices, or maybe it was your grandparents that did it for your parents, or maybe it's you that's doing it for your children now. This is who we are. This is who we've always been. We are a nation of people that dream big dreams. We are a nation of go-getters. We are the descendants of immigrants who refused to accept the rules of the old world that held them down. We are the descendants of slaves who overcame the ugliest institution in human history to claim their stake in the American dream. This is what makes it special. Every country in the world has rich people, and there's nothing wrong with being rich. We celebrate financial success. But what makes us special are the millions and millions of people that aren't rich and aren't trying to get rich. They're just trying to be happy. They're just trying to pursue happiness. And in almost every other nation on earth, unless you come from the right family, that's impossible. I know this personally too, because like your governor, my parents weren't born here either. When they came here in 1956, they didn't know anyone. Literally, the first words my father really learned to say in English were written out phonetically on a little piece of paper. And it was basically, I'm looking for work, or I'm looking for a job. Those are the first words he learned. And it was hard. My father had no advanced education, had no education really. He stopped going to school when he was 9. His mom died. He had to go work. He would work for the next 70 years of his life. And it was not easy those first years here. They experienced a lot of setbacks. But they persevered. Here's what's amazing. Literally, less than 10 years after they came here like that, my parents were homeowners. Not a mansion, but a safe home in a safe and stable neighborhood. They would be able to raise children in this country. They were so optimistic that they had my older brother when she was 19. I was born when she was 40. And my sister was born a year and a half after that. That's called optimism in the future. My parents were a bartender and a maid. And they were able to retire with dignity. And the most important thing of all is they were able to leave all 4 of their children better off than themselves. That story has a name. It's called the American Dream. It has changed the lives of millions and millions of people. In fact, it's changed the course of human history. But the American Dream was never automatic. It existed because of the hard work and the sacrifices of the people that came before us. There has never been a time in this history where we haven't faced challenges. There's never been a time in our nation's history where we haven't faced challenges. Ours is the story of a country where each generation confronted their challenges and embraced their opportunities. Now the time has come for this generation to do its part. And if we elect the right people to political office in this country, we will do our part. And the great thing about our party is we have this great new generation of leaders ready to take the mantle. We are prepared to turn the page and move forward, to take our principles of conservatism and apply them to the challenges of the 21st century. Leaders like Trey Gowdy. Trey, come up here for a moment because I want them to see you again. And leaders like Tim Scott. Where's Tim? This is why I'm so proud to have their support. These aren't just conservative Republicans. These are people who understand what makes America special and are willing to do whatever it takes to make this nation greater than it's ever been. And if you give me the chance to be your president, I will work with leaders like this to achieve that. If you give me the chance to be your president, I will unite this country as best we can. That means I will never ask you to be angry at another group of Americans so that I can win an election. I will never pit us against each other so that I can get 51% of the people to vote against the other 49% of the people. If you elect me president of the United States, I will be the president of all Americans, even those Americans that do not like me. Even the people that protest against us. Even the people that say nasty things about me on Twitter. Guess what? I'm going to cut their taxes too. We live in difficult times in a rapidly changing world. But we have the chance to do something special in this generation. But we have to do it now. And if I'm elected president, we will. If you make me the president of the United States and you have a chance to begin that process here on Saturday in South Carolina, we are going to re-embrace the principles that made us special, and we are going to apply them to the unique challenges of the 21st century. And when our work is done, here's what history will say about this generation. It will say that we lived in the early years of this new century in a difficult time. that the country had made a bad decision in 2008 and everything that made us special was in doubt. But we found ourselves again. We re-embraced the principles of free enterprise and limited government and the Constitution and a strong national defense and the values that made our culture strong. We re-embraced these things, but we applied them to the unique challenges of the 21st century. And because we did what needed to be done, our children became the freest and the most prosperous Americans that ever lived. Because we did what needed to be done, the American dream didn't just survive. It reached more people and changed more lives than ever before. And because we did what needed to be done, the 21st century was not just as good as the 20th century, the 21st century was better. Because we did what needed to be done, we, in this generation, made the 21st century a new American century. I need your help. Thank you. I'm asking you for your vote.
You guys, I want to thank everybody for coming out today. I'll tell you like I told Marco, it's go time for South Carolina. We need you to go out and tell 10 people. We need you to get on social media. We need you to go email all your friends. We need to show that South Carolina makes presidents and that our next president will be Marco Rubio. And I've got to say this. Take a picture of this because the new group of conservatives that's taken over America looks like a Benetton commercial. God bless. Thank you very much.